question we've stopped asking, not because we found the answer, but because we've been too distracted to remember it exists. Am I actually living, or just existing in a loop someone else designed for me? From the moment you wake up, your attention is hijacked. Notifications, news, deadlines, demands. The day rushes forward like a high-speed train you didn't choose to board, and yet you sit there gripping the rails, pretending you're the one driving it. You were promised a future of freedom, that technology would unlock joy, that being connected would mean less loneliness, that if you followed the map, study hard, work harder, buy things, climb ladders, you'd eventually arrive at that elusive place called happiness. But somewhere along the way, you started noticing cracks. The more you bought, the emptier you felt. The more you achieved, the more distant peace became. You have access to everything, information, entertainment, people, yet you're starved for something you can't name. It's not an accident. You've been taught to see progress as salvation, to trust that every advancement brings you closer to wholeness. But no one told you that these same advancements can quietly hollow you out. They've designed a world where silence is unbearable, where stillness is suspicious, where self-worth is measured in metrics, followers, likes, income, output. You are constantly nudged to perform, to optimize, to consume, because if you stopped, even for a moment, you might remember that you are more than a machine. And that memory is dangerous to a system built on your forgetting. What they won't tell you is that discomfort, the feeling you've been taught to drown with distractions, is not your enemy. It's your soul resisting the role it never agreed to play. It's the signal that your inner world is suffocating under layers of noise, expectation, and false identity. Every scroll, every purchase, every new notification was meant to keep that voice quiet. Because if you really heard it, you'd start asking impossible questions. You'd stop running. You'd start waking up. There's a kind of exhaustion no sleep can cure, a spiritual fatigue that comes from living a life that isn't yours. And most people never stop long enough to notice it. They just keep moving, faster and faster, chasing a version of happiness sold to them like a product. But speed isn't clarity. Acceleration isn't purpose. And you can only outrun yourself for so long. Let me ask you something you probably haven't asked yourself in a while. If no one was watching, if no one was applauding or judging, what would you do with your life? Not what's expected, not what sounds impressive. What would you do if all the noise disappeared? If that question stings, good. That sting is the beginning of truth. And the truth is, the life you've been living may not be yours at all. And this is where the illusion deepens. Because modern life doesn't just distract you, it convinces you that the distraction is the point. It rewards busyness over depth, noise over reflection, appearance over authenticity. The game is not to wake up, it's to play along. Smile for the camera, chase the next goal, collect experiences like trophies and post them like proof that you're winning. But inside, something still doesn't sit right. And when the music stops, when the phone dies, when the room falls silent, you're left with a question no one trained you to answer. Why do I feel so empty, even when I've done everything right? That's the paradox they've built around you. A life where you have more than ever, and yet feel less alive than ever. You've been convinced that comfort equals fulfillment. That if you just earn a bit more, upgrade one more thing, reach one more milestone, the ache inside you will finally dissolve. But the truth is, you've just been numbing it. The hunger you feel isn't for more stuff, it's for meaning, for purpose, for connection that can't be bought or performed or posted. You were not meant to live a life chasing validation like a currency. You were meant to live a life that feels real in your bones, even when no one else sees it. But here's the hard truth. That kind of life doesn't come from running faster. It comes from stopping entirely, from stepping outside the race, not to escape the world, but to finally start engaging with it, on your terms, not the ones handed to you. That's where your power begins. In stillness, in resistance, in questioning everything you were told you had to be. Because if you don't stop and choose your path, the world will choose it for you. And it doesn't care about your peace. It only cares that you keep moving, keep consuming, keep functioning. There is nothing more radical today than choosing not to perform, to walk away from the stage, from the pressure, from the curated self you've been rehearsing for so long. There is no louder rebellion than choosing silence over spectacle, presence over productivity, authenticity over applause. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, like you're standing naked in front of a world that only accepts masks. But slowly, that discomfort turns into something else. It becomes clarity, It becomes courage. It becomes the space where your true self begins to breathe again. You've spent years becoming someone the world would accept. Now it's time to become someone you can live with, not the version chasing trends, chasing status, chasing relevance, but the version that knows how to sit with pain, how to honor joy, how to listen when the soul whispers instead of shouting, because that whisper, that's where your real life begins. And once you start hearing that whisper, really hearing it, everything changes. You begin to see the patterns for what they are, not truths, but traps. The constant urgency, the fear of missing out, the polished lives flashing across your screen. They're not reflections of reality. They're mechanisms designed to keep you distracted from your own. You start noticing how easily you've outsourced your worth to jobs, to opinions, to algorithms. You begin to realize how much of your time, your energy, your soul has been given to things that never loved you back. But here's the revelation. Nothing they gave you was ever meant to fill you. It was meant to keep you chasing. Because as long as you're chasing, you're predictable. As long as you're chasing, you won't stop long enough to ask the most dangerous question of all. What if I already have everything I need? Not in a material sense, but something deeper. The ability to choose, to redirect, to walk away. You see, freedom was never about doing whatever you want whenever you want. Real freedom is living a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself in order to survive. And that kind of freedom is terrifying, because it asks for more than rebellion. It asks for responsibility. It demands that you no longer blame the system for every lost moment. It requires you to reclaim your time, not just as hours in a day, but as sacred ground. Your life, minute by minute, breath by breath. That's the real currency. Not money, not fame, not likes, your presence, your ability to fully inhabit your own existence. Because the system can steal almost anything from you, but it can't take what you choose to guard fiercely. Your awareness, your intention, your alignment. So what now? You pause, you reflect. You begin the slow, quiet work of becoming real again. You make time for silence. You let yourself feel the discomfort you used to drown. You reconnect with your breath, with your body, with people not through screens but through presence. You forgive yourself for the years you spent sleepwalking. You weren't lazy, you weren't broken, you were just lost in a world designed to keep you that way. But now you see the map for what it is, a distraction, and you choose instead to follow a compass, one that was always there, buried perhaps, rusted maybe, but yours. And maybe that's the point of all this. Not to escape modernity, not to go live in a cave or reject every convenience, but to live with your eyes open, to take the tools, not as masters, but as servants, to remember that the purpose of life is not to be efficient, but to be alive, not to impress, but to feel, not to win, but to exist, fully, honestly, even imperfectly. Because in the end, the life that matters is not the one that gets the most attention, but the one that feels the most true. So before you move on, ask yourself, am I living my life, or just playing a part I didn't write? If the answer makes you uneasy, good. That means there's still time. Time to rewrite the story, time to slow down, listen deeper, and step off the stage. Because the moment you stop performing is the moment you finally begin to live. If this video stirred something in you, if it helped you see things differently, even just for a moment, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. Not for vanity, but because these conversations matter. And the more we spread them, the more people we can wake up together.